Wellington's army found itself in a precarious position, confined between the sea on the left, the river Nive on the right, and the fortified city of Bayonne directly ahead. To break free from this bottleneck, he pushed a large portion of his army across the Nive, allowing them to advance around Bayonne, while the remaining troops held their positions near Arcanes. However, Wellington faced a critical challenge. Soult could easily move his forces through Bayonne, enabling him to concentrate superior numbers against either wing of Wellington's army at will. This precarious situation was further exacerbated by heavy rains, which washed away the pontoon bridges over the Nive, isolating the two wings and leaving them unable to support one another. The Light Brigade bore the brunt of the first major French assault, which was launched against the left wing at Arcanes. If you enjoy this type of content, please like and subscribe. This is Gairdner's journal. These are his words. Let's begin. December 9, 1813. At daybreak, firing began on the right, but we heard little from that direction throughout the day. Soon after, musketry erupted on the left, where Sir John Hope's corps was engaged. The fighting was intense and unrelenting, sometimes accompanied by artillery, which I believe belonged to the enemy. We could both see and hear that Sir John Hope's troops were giving ground. Towards evening, our left pickets attacked those of the enemy, who immediately retreated to their entrenched camp without firing a shot. The picket opposite our company, which was the right picket, also withdrew upon seeing this. We advanced and took possession of the house they abandoned, prompting the enemy to open fire on us. We established our pickets along this new line, but during the night, they were withdrawn to their previous position. Before dark, we were relieved by the right wing of the 43rd Regiment and returned to our cantonments. I hear that General Hill met with little opposition and is now on the Adour. The 4th Division was brought up to support our position in case of an attack. Showery weather. December 10th. About 2 hours after daybreak, the enemy launched a large-scale attack, forcing back our pickets and those of General Hope's corps. The assault was sudden and violent, creating great confusion. Although our pickets had observed the enemy massing in front of them for some time, they were completely surprised when the attack finally came. Upon reaching Château d'Arcanes, our company was ordered to halt, as the division had been instructed to hold this position. The rest of the battalion arrived in scattered companies, but our company was sent forward to reoccupy the ridge in front of the chateau to support the 3rd Battalion, which was already retreating. When we received the order, the 3rd Battalion was falling back, and it was pointed out to the commanding officer that it was both dangerous and useless to send a single company to hold a ridge, especially when we were unable to communicate with our flanks. Nevertheless, we were ordered forward, leaving one subdivision at the house below the chateau. Hopwood and I advanced with the forward subdivision, cautiously making our way to the top of the ridge with a small party. The enemy had not yet occupied it, but they were close. Almost immediately upon our arrival, a musket ball struck both Hopwood and Sergeant Brotherwood, killing them instantly. Thus, 2 of the bravest soldiers I ever knew died needlessly. I later heard our commanding officer claim that it was never his intention for us to occupy the ridge, but I will always maintain this to be false. Both Hopwood and I knew the danger, and we would never have advanced without orders. I have always said, and will continue to say, that Hopwood lost his life due to the ignorance of the commanding officer. Had Colonel Barnard been in command that day, Hopwood, Brotherwood, and the other men lost from our company would have been spared. As soon as Hopwood fell, I rushed to his side, took his hand, and called his name. He half opened his eyes, but never spoke again. His brains had been blown out. This tragic event left me in command of the company. Since I was under the direct observation of the commanding officer, and he could order a retreat at any time by bugle, I resolved not to abandon our position until forced out or ordered to withdraw. However, the enemy soon realized we were unsupported and out of position. They sent troops through a hedge on our left, who opened fire on us at close range. We immediately fell back to the house where our other subdivision was stationed. I have never run faster in my life. A few musket balls at one's back provide remarkable agility. We held the house, where we should have remained from the start. At nightfall, we were relieved by another company, and the house was formally established as a picket post. The new defensive line, drawn right and left from the house, was far stronger than before. When relieved, we returned to the chateau. Sir John Hope was fiercely attacked this morning by a superior force but successfully repelled the assault. He himself was slightly wounded, and his corps suffered heavy losses. The skirmishing continued until dark. The 4th Division moved up immediately in support, having been stationed close behind us. The 3rd Division, which had crossed the river, joined the right of the 4th Division at midday. Sir Lowry Cole had strict orders to defend this position to the last. We lost 1 officer taken prisoner and about 18 men today. Rainy weather. December 11th. Last night, a Nassau brigade, which had previously been positioned against our division, deserted to Sir John Hope. They had been engaged in heavy fighting during the day and took the opportunity to cross over under cover of darkness, bringing their staff and officers with them. Enemy desertions are now increasing rapidly. The deserters report that Soult has 7 divisions on this side of Bayonne, and his total force consists of 9 divisions, numbering around 55,000 men, including 3,000 cavalry. General Kempt, our brigadier, wanted to capture the ridge opposite the chateau, which was the enemy's picket line, the very place where Hopwood was killed. His plan was to establish our pickets there, using our battalion in the 3rd Battalion of the 95th Regiment. He called some officers to explain his plan, but General Alton did not approve the attack, a decision every man and officer in the regiment agreed with. For my part, having seen the terrain beyond the ridge, I was convinced that even if we took it, we could never hold it. Thankfully, the attack was never carried out. There was considerable firing on the left, reportedly due to the French attempting to retake ground lost to Hope's forces. General Foy is still positioned with a division at Saint-Jean-Pied-de-Port. This evening, I relieved Lee's company on picket duty. Rainy weather. December 12th. The enemy picket in front of my position began working at about 8 o'clock last night, continuing throughout the night. At daybreak, I discovered 4 open embrasures in their new earthworks. An hour later, they concealed the embrasures with branches and continued working all day, which I believe was mere deception to create an alarm. Nevertheless, it put the chateau on alert, and everything was made ready for an immediate attack. At one point, the enemy displayed a large force opposite our division, raising expectations of an assault, though none materialized. There was heavy firing on the left, where I hear that the guards suffered severely. It is said that they brought it upon themselves by mistakenly firing on a battalion that was relieving a post. This evening, I was relieved on picket by Cox. Fine weather. December 13th. The enemy withdrew last night, returning to their previous picket line, which they had occupied before their attack on the 10th. Our pickets advanced cautiously and reclaimed their former positions. At daybreak, I went up and found poor Hopwood's body, which the enemy had barely covered. We gave him a proper burial. Poor fellow. Soon after daylight, heavy firing was heard in the direction of General Hill, lasting most of the day. Lord Wellington rode past towards Hill's position at about 10 o'clock and ordered the 4th Division to move up. A deserter reported that Soult had been supplying his army by boat down the Adour, as he lacked any other sufficient means of transport. If so, General Hill's advance on the Adour would cut off this vital supply route, putting the French in a dire position. It seems likely that all of Soult's recent maneuvers have been aimed at forcing Hill away from the Adour. His attack on our left on the 10th may have been based on the assumption that our left flank had been weakened to reinforce Hill's attack on the right. Last night, Soult concentrated his forces for an attack on General Hill this morning, but I understand he was repulsed with heavy losses. There is a rumor that 18 grenadier companies had been prepared to storm the church and chateau at Arcanes, but the battery they built opposite our picket turned out to be a complete bluff. I was sent with the company to reoccupy our old cantonments, but we were later ordered back to the chateau. Pickets are now taken by brigades instead of battalions, as when our battalion alone was on picket duty, the chateau was left unguarded, making our position weaker. Fine day. December 14th. Lord Wellington arrived at the chateau today from General Hill's position, appearing to be in high spirits. I overheard him tell General Kempt that the enemy had been repulsed 4 times with immense losses. General Hill had only his own corps engaged, yet the enemy suffered greatly. I also heard that most of the French soldiers were drunk when they attacked. All quiet today. Desertions from the enemy continue at a high rate. Rainy weather. December 15th. Our company on outlying picket duty today at our previous position. The enemy seems nervous about an attack. When they saw some of our guns moving to the right, they immediately stood to arms, manning their defenses. At 3 o'clock, an enemy sentry deserted from his post, crossing to the picket on my right. While I was at dinner, a messenger arrived, saying that the officer of the French picket wished to speak with me. I went down and past the abbey, where 2 officers of the 55th French Regiment greeted me. We shook hands cordially, and when I asked what they wanted, they produced a keg of brandy, saying they had only come to drink my health and have a chat. After a pleasant exchange, we parted on good terms. Rainy day. December 16th. Relieved this morning by a company of the 17th Portuguese Line, then moved to occupy the reserve post. Rainy weather. December 17th. Relieved this morning. Our old cantonment has been given to a Portuguese working party. A battery is being constructed in the garden of the chateau, and another at the church. Fine day. General Hill's headquarters are at Vieux Mugere. December 18th. Rainy night, but a fine day. I visited the French picket today to deliver a letter for one of our officers, Church, who was captured on the 10th. December 19th to 21st. Very bad weather. December 22nd. Our company joined a working party near Arbonne, just behind Peau, to build roads. These roads, under the supervision of the Staff Corps, are being constructed to link the main road behind our defensive positions with the Bayonne-Rouen-Thespais road. I visited the battery at the Church of Arcanes. It now holds 9 guns. 5 French ship guns. 4 long English brass 6-pounders. It is very strong. The woodland below the church, which was dense with young trees, has been cut down to a height of about 3 feet, with the trees laid along in thick layers, forming an impenetrable abattis. The battery at the chateau is still under construction. It is expected to mount 2 24-pound carronades, 1 5.5-inch howitzer. Desertions from the enemy continue. 3 men came over to our pickets last night, and 3 more the night before. Some are foreigners, but many are Frenchmen. December 23rd. Rainy weather. December 24th. First fine day since the 18th. An English officer from the Portuguese artillery passed our house today, saying it was certain we would move tomorrow morning. He claimed a signal gun would be fired to announce the advance. No one else seems to know anything about this, which is strange. It is rumored that Soult has withdrawn from the Adour, leaving behind only troops to hold Bayonne. If true, we may move soon. A German soldier was captured today while talking to one of our sentries. He was deeply upset about being caught. He told me that there are 3 French divisions on this side of the river. Many foreign troops in the French army still seem uncertain about whether their home countries have turned against France. When asked if Bonaparte has been forced back across the Rhine, they say they have heard the rumor but do not know if it is true. Several pontoons passed our house to the right today. December 25th, Christmas Day. Our company relieved the outpost today. Fine day, with hard frost last night. That night, one of our men nearly got into trouble for fraternizing too much with the enemy. A soldier named Grindley was sent into the French picket house to buy brandy, but he stayed too long and was found drunk inside. Fearing the incident would be discovered by Lieutenant Gairdner, 2 comrades retrieved him just in time. As they were bringing him back, Sir James Kempt rode down to the front post. Grindley was immediately confined, but escaped with only a light punishment. December 26th. On outlying picket duty today. Same cold, wet weather. The enemy is constantly drilling, indicating that they must have received reinforcements from the new conscription. December 27th. Relieved this morning. December 28th. The Church of Arcanes is now one of the strongest fortifications I have ever seen, completely unassailable. December 29th. Blank. December 30th. Rode to Saint-Jean-de-Luz today. On the way, I heard that the enemy has withdrawn their pickets, pulling them back into their entrenched camp. While in Saint-Jean-de-Luz, a report arrived from General Alton stating that the enemy was forming columns opposite him, suggesting a possible attack. As usual, the rumor spread wildly, and soon everyone was convinced the division was under attack. The guards were ordered to stand to arms, and we hurried back. However, before we had gone 3 miles, we learned it was a false alarm. It turned out the French columns were only repositioning, likely to prevent further desertions. December 31st. The enemy was greatly displeased yesterday when our pickets occupied the ground they had abandoned. They claimed they had withdrawn only to create a neutral space between us, but despite their complaints, they did not open fire. General Alton has since reached an agreement with them. Our pickets will occupy the abandoned ground during the day but will withdraw to their original positions at night. This evening, we held a dance at the chateau to welcome the new year. Reflections on 1813. Thus, we have seen the end of the year 1813, a year of unparalleled success. There is no era in history that presents a more glorious, active, and eventful campaign than this. In the Peninsular War, our Allied armies stood on the banks of the Egueda on May 21 and, by December 9, had reached the banks of the Adour, a campaign that included 3 victorious general actions in the capture of 2 fortresses. One taken by siege, the other by blockade. Additionally, the castle of Burgos, which had resisted our efforts in 1812, fell into our hands without resistance this year. This campaign, though marked by extraordinary success, has been remarkable for its strategic precision rather than unexpected turns of fortune. Unlike many other wars, where chance plays a significant role, our victories this year have been the direct result of tactical foresight and maneuvering. There has been no widespread defection among our enemies, except for the desertion of the Nassau Brigade on December 10, an event that, while noteworthy, had no major impact on the outcome of the campaign, which was already decided. We have suffered no unforeseen disasters, such as severe weather losses or unexpected reversals. Every success has been planned, anticipated, and executed with precision. In the history of warfare, I believe no campaign has provided a finer lesson for a soldier. It stands as a testament to the genius of Lord Wellington, demonstrating how much can be achieved by military strategy and leadership, rather than relying on mere chance or luck. At the same time, while Wellington's plans were bold and brilliantly executed, the French commanders, until Soult took command, suffered from indecision and inaction. Editor's note. Strategic overview of the campaign. The campaign began on May 21. A portion of the army, the 2nd and Light Divisions, moved towards Salamanca, as the French expected. However, the main force, under General Graham, took a different route, crossing the Douro in Portugal to outflank the French defenses and advance toward the Esla River. This maneuver alone demonstrates Wellington's remarkable foresight. The cantonment of the British troops was not chosen at random, it was deliberately positioned so that when the campaign began, the British left flank was already in a position to turn the enemy's defenses. In previous winters, the British right flank had extended far into southern Spain, but this year, it was concentrated near Coria, while the left flank was along the Douro. The French mistook this for a simple winter encampment, but in reality, it was a preparatory move that allowed Wellington to turn the French defensive lines from the start of the campaign. The 2nd and Light Divisions advanced on Salamanca, where they found General Macoun entrenched with a single division, a tactical blunder. Isolated and unsupported, Macoun remained too long, losing over 300 men as prisoners, aside from the killed and wounded, without achieving any strategic objective. As soon as the left flank crossed the Esla River, the right flank moved from Salamanca to Toro, where we crossed the Douro. From Toro, we made a rapid march to Burgos, while General Graham advanced toward the source of the Ebro. When we reached Burgos, we witnessed another failure of French leadership. A French division was encamped with the river at its back, leaving only one bridge for retreat. Meanwhile, the castle of Burgos, which should have been heavily fortified, was barely prepared for defense. Only Lord Wellington's rapid march, which prevented us from fully scouting the French positions, allowed this division to escape annihilation. In contrast, the castle itself, which had held out against us in 1812, was now blown up and abandoned without resistance. Once Burgos was secure, we changed direction, advancing rapidly toward the Ebro River. This river is considered one of the strongest defensive barriers in Europe, yet we crossed it without firing a shot, and the French had no idea we were even there. So unprepared were the French, that several divisions were still in winter quarters when we crossed the river. They did not even know our strength or direction of march, and this allowed us to surprise Maughn's division near San Milan. After roughly handling one of his brigades, the other was forced to scatter into the mountains, abandoning all baggage. Meanwhile, the 2nd, 4th, and Light Divisions marched directly on Vittoria, where part of the French army was already positioned, while the rest were still moving toward the city, completely unaware of our true strength. Lord Wellington's tactical brilliance was evident in how rapidly we moved. By the time the French army gathered, Wellington's forces were already in their midst, and the enemy barely understood what was happening. The Battle of Vittoria. The King of Prussia once wrote, "He who, at the start of a campaign, is the most alert in assembling his troops and marching forward to attack a key position, will force his enemy onto the defensive and dictate the terms of battle." This perfectly describes Wellington's strategy. A British army, due to its ample supply of ready money, can move faster than any other force in Europe. Wellington capitalized on this, assembling and moving his forces at lightning speed. This allowed him to reach Burgos before it was properly fortified, cross the Ebro before the French could react, appear at Vittoria before the French even knew our full strength. At Vittoria, Wellington's 3 divisions arrived before the French could react, while 3 more were moving by alternate routes, converging at the precise moment of battle. At the same time, 2 other divisions were crossing the Zadorra River, securing the French rear, ensuring their defeat and the loss of all artillery and baggage. The Battle of Vittoria was a masterpiece of strategic planning. No battle in history has brought more credit to the general who won it. As expected, the enemy retreated toward Pamplona, bringing only a single howitzer. All other artillery and baggage were lost. This same speed and precision allowed Wellington to invest Pamplona before it could be resupplied, ensuring its eventual surrender without a costly siege. The end of the campaign. The victorious momentum continued. San Sebastian was besieged and captured. Pamplona was blockaded until its surrender on November 1st. On November 10, the Allied army attacked the enemy's entrenched position on the Nivelle, forcing the French to retreat to Bayonne and the right bank of the Nive. On December 9, General Hill's forces crossed the Nive, securing a position on the Adour. On December 10, Soult gathered 50,000 men and launched a desperate counterattack on our left flank, hoping to force Hill to retreat. Despite temporary gains, his efforts failed. By December 13, he shifted his attack to Hill, but was again repulsed with heavy losses. Realizing his strategy had failed, Soult withdrew to his original positions, and Hill remained on the Adour. Thus ended one of the most brilliant campaigns in military history. That concludes the 8th part of the story. Thank you very much for listening. Please like and subscribe if you enjoy this type of content.